US v. Martinez-Fuerte is a 1976 Supreme Court case in which the court held 7-2 that the Border Patrol's establishment of fixed interior checkpoints do not violate the Fourth Amendment, which protects from unreasonable searches and seizures. Interior checkpoints existed for decades before US v. Martinez-Fuerte, but this was a case involving what are called fixed interior checkpoints as opposed to roving checkpoints, and that question was whether the establishment of these checkpoints ran afoul of the Fourth Amendment. The Supreme Court in some other cases had considered whether a warrant was required or probable cause was required for the searching of vehicles, but Martinez-Fuerte dealt explicitly with the establishment of these checkpoints, whether it was constitutional for Border Patrol to ask people driving on the roads whether they're US citizens, and questions similar to that. At checkpoints, Customs and Border Protection are allowed to ask simple questions like, are you a US citizen? And if they're not satisfied with the answer or they suspect something suspicious, they're allowed to pass or direct vehicles to secondary inspection where more invasive questioning can take place. If Border Patrol wants to search a vehicle in secondary, they need probable cause, a warrant, or the consent of the driver. In Martinez-Fuerte, the US Supreme Court actually explicitly mentioned that referring some drivers to secondary because of perceived Mexican ancestry did not violate the Fourth Amendment. This was criticized by Justice Brennan, who wrote the dissent in the case. The majority, though, said that the majority of cars that go through these checkpoints are never referred to secondary, and that actually we shouldn't worry too much about the discriminatory impact that that might have. The government argued in Martinez-Fuerte that these fixed internal checkpoints did not run afoul of the Fourth Amendment because the checkpoints were reasonable. They did not unduly impact on drivers' privacy, intrude into their lives, and that such checkpoints were necessary to secure the border from contraband. Martinez-Fuerte and the other people involved in the case argued that these checkpoints did violate the Fourth Amendment. In this case, these checkpoints were not actually at the border, but on highways in California. The idea here being that actually the Border Patrol's imposition away from the border did violate the Fourth Amendment's right to be secure in your person's houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Some of the most concerning aspects of these kind of checkpoints is the area in which they're allowed to operate. Thanks to statute and regulatory interpretation, CBP has the authority to set up permanent fixed checkpoints within 100 miles of the US border. So that includes the northern border, the southern border, as well as the east and west coasts. Now, 100 miles from those areas includes some of America's largest cities, such as Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, and entire states. Much of New England and the entire state of Florida is included in this area. Studies reveal that the majority of people arrested at these checkpoints are not in fact illegal aliens, but either legal residents or American citizens, and that these checkpoints are more effective at enforcing drug laws than they are immigration violations. And some might applaud the fact that these checkpoints catch illegal drugs, but it's worth emphasizing that the point of these checkpoints is to apprehend illegal immigrants and those smuggling human beings. CBP also has numerous authorities when it comes to international arrival airports, which are scattered all across the United States. The best argument I think that the government has in cases like these is that it's very, very difficult to inspect vehicles at the border, that a lot of contraband is smuggled in using vehicles, and that these stops are not actually as intrusive as many people seem to think they are. Because some of these checkpoints are established on roads not far away from the border, they can be highly confident that these cars must have come from the border. There aren't many roads in a lot of these places.